Fear is not a bad thing. Fear is the natural energy of protection. And we need protection in a difficult world. The world's difficult. But then you have a frontal cortex that's Einsteinian. Every person has an Einsteinian capacity if their brain isn't damaged.
Yeah.
To function as a genius at a very high level. This is where our contradiction is. We are choosing every second between love and fear.
Yeah.
And it is not our fault. It is our humanness. The meaning of life at that next level of consciousness is to make life meaningful. Our brains are getting broken by the internet. We don't realize, like I was drinking too much alcohol because I wanted the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
We're using Instagram, X, Twitter, Facebook for dopamine hits. And that is dangerous.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Ageless Future. I'm Regan Archibald, and today I'm proud to introduce my dear friend, Steve D'Annunzio. He's a spiritual teacher who helps people access their higher self so they can live a more joyful and productive life. He uses music, spiritual maps, caring questions, and an insatiable love of people, which I think you'll feel today. He helps others self-discover hidden possibilities as a path to live their soul purpose. Steve's worked with massive companies like Pepsi-Cola, Dartmouth, Hitchcock Medical Center, University of Rochester, Guardian Life Insurance Company, Penn Mutual, Mass Mutual, MDRT, Gamma, Entrepreneurs Organization, and Integrated Capital Management. Steve, it's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. What a wonderful gift to be with you, Regan.
It's always a gift to be with you, and so your life is led you into this pathway of self-discovery like most men never even even look at or think about. But maybe talk about your journey and how you became, essentially a mindset coach.
Wow, big question. And a great question. Thank you for asking it. At age 18, started to have a series of friends pass away from drug overdose, car accident, motorcycle accident, suicide. And I really began to ask deeper questions that I find most people don't ask till middle age, which led me to meet some people who eventually I wound up at age 19 going out to meet a spiritual teacher in San Francisco, who was an Indian spiritual enlightened being, and began studying Eastern philosophies, Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, being raised Catholic, but really not finding a depth of understanding in that path, began to really study the powers of meditation, the powers of mind, the powers of intention, which there's a 5,000-year track record, being somebody who understands, the acupuncture system as you do. And led me eventually to two dear friends who were life-changing. And I think of this as kind of a golden thread that is weaving through everybody's life. The golden thread is, how do we come to an awakening of the gift of life? How do we treasure this gift of life? And these two people one was a fantastic artist whose name is Fred Johnson, who introduced me to a soul group of people that brought us together. And then the other was my dear friend he's passed on, but his name was Jeff Locker. And through a series of synchronicities, this divine intelligence, this golden thread, the grace of God moving through our lives, through whether it's, ontology, the study of being, psychology, and then business. My friend Jeff was working for Tony Robbins and brought me into the world of business. And I began integrating spiritual principles in the guise of business productivity training, and wound up over the last 30 years developing a course in enlightened entrepreneurship, which is how you and I met.
Yes, and this enlightened entrepreneurship. The great thing for those of you who have had a chance to attend one of Steve's events or actually been to be mentored by him, it's much different than just some chanting or meditation. It actually there's some tactical work that you take them through, but the thing that you remove that I perceive is you remove the biggest block, and that's the block of mindset. And one of our mutual friends, Garrett Gunderson, he was one of the people who introduced us. And it was, Steve and I were introduced by a few people, and then we finally met at Jack Canfield's TLC group. And we were like, okay, we're friends now. We're already friends, but now we actually cross paths. But Garrett still quotes things that he learned from you 20 years ago, from your acronym on love. I'd love to have you share April and love with us, and then maybe talk about what mindset is and how you can help people remove some of the biggest barriers in their life just by focusing on it.
Yeah, well, Garrett's a genius, right? So Garrett is like you on their sole purpose. Sole purpose at one level is about what your unique ability is, as Dan Sullivan will call it. Your unique ability is where your passion and your talent meet. But sole purpose, actually, at the next level, at the highest level, is about building a life you love. It's about building a life you love. And how do we do that? Well, we don't have a defect in the brain. We have a challenge in the brain because the whole animal kingdom lives in our brain. We have these two competing theories of the theory of evolution, Darwinism, and the theory of creation, the core of all religions, whether they're the Abrahamic religions or the Eastern mysticism of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism. And in fact, my experience repeatedly through thousands of personal experiences and probably tens of thousands of experiences in a business setting with clients, where results are reality, which is really important, is that we are making a decision every second between the fight or flight brain back here, the reptilian brain, which is your protector. Fear is not a bad thing. Fear is the natural energy of protection. And we need protection in a difficult world. The world's difficult. But then you have a frontal cortex that's Einsteinian. Every person has an Einsteinian capacity, if their brain isn't damaged, to function as a genius at a very high level. I've watched your genius at the front of the room time and time again. And the funny thing is, yes, we met at Jack's event, but actually you created massive value for me the month before because you offered me a free blood test as a gift. We were sharing the stage at an event, at a New York Life event.
Yes, that was before that.
It was before, right?
Yep.
So I want everybody to know, you gifted me, you created massive value and found that, I had, as all people my age typically do, is I was wearing out and I had inflammation and all these things. And, I expressed this quintessential decision in mindset. Am I going to come from the love, learn, and logic brain? Or am I going to be driven by the fight, flight, freeze, feed brain? Back here. This is where our contradiction is. We are choosing every second between love and fear.
Yeah.
And it is not our fault. It is our humanness. When we learn to practice April is an autocorrect function that helps us move from fear to love, from scarcity to prosperity, from doubt and worry to what I call the confidence mindset. And April is simply an acronym for what every great teacher from personal development, whether it's Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or Garrett Gunderson, to every high-level spiritual teacher from Krishna to Buddha to Jesus Christ to all the avatars, and the Lao Tzu, and they all are saying the same thing. And essentially, I boiled them all down after reading their work to this autocorrect function that every second, every one of us is making a decision between love and fear. And when we learn what love is, it is not an emotion. It is a choice to express this brain instead of this one. Your logic brain, the brain that learns, your genius brain, and how to A, be aware, P, be present, R, reframe whatever the fear is, I, the power of intention, and L, love, not as an emotion, but as a way of being and doing your life. Being first, being aware and intentional, and then doing the things that create value. And this is exactly what you did for me. We met, you were preparing your presentation, you were listening to me, I'm on stage speaking, right. You keep looking at me like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. And then you created value for me. And I joined your program, and now, we're doing this work together. So that's kind of the gist of April. And that I'll park it after I tell you what, you asked this wonderful acronym. Love is a way of being and doing in the world. It is leaving others valuable experiences. LOVE. And that when you create value for good people, dollars follow value. Prosperity then comes back to you.
Yeah.
And, you created value for me. I mean, you gave me this $1,500, whatever it cost, blood test. And it was really revealing of all the issues I had going on in my body. And I listened to you speak, and it was beautiful. And then I hired you as my health coach.
Yeah, which I appreciate. And then as we got to know each other even more and had deeper conversations, what Steve and I realized is there's this whole ability that Steve has to access deeper aspects of the soul and really help people tap into a greater source of wisdom that, most people miss. And my Eastern background really resonated with the level of work you're doing, especially the scale of consciousness, where you talk about that transition period in our emotions where we go from anger to courage. And I just was like, this is exactly it's the kind of thing that I study all the time. It's what I believe is actually one of the most powerful parts of being human is just the level of consciousness and being aware of consciousness and moving our emotions through this scale in an upward trend, ideally. And Steve being able to teach that, I invited him to the September retreat. So for those of you who are hearing this, Steve will be, you're going to have direct teachings from the master himself, Steve D'Annunzio. And we're going to cover epigenetics, some of the chakra healing. And I think it's just beautiful work that you're doing. And maybe if we could dive into the epigenetics a little bit and your understanding of it. And even if you don't mind sharing some of the questions that and assessment that you've created.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So a dear friend of mine wrote a book called The Genie in Your Genes. And his name is Dawson Church, and he's a PhD. And I know you know Dawson. And what we discovered in the last 15 years and how quickly technology is changing so fast is that only 15 years ago, medical science in the allopathic world, allopathy is what is taught in medical schools, traditional medicine, believed that 100% of what befell your health was genetic in nature. So if you had the BRCA gene as a woman, you are certainly predisposed to breast cancer and uterine cancer. If you had alcoholism in your genes, and it was a pattern that was embedded in the genes, typically that would manifest. If you had the Alzheimer's gene, you would have, a predisposition towards dementia or Alzheimer's. And this was like medical science was locked into this. And then only about 10 years ago, the epigenetics and the data began to show something different. People that had the Alzheimer's gene were not getting Alzheimer's. Yeah. And they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? People that had a predisposition to breast cancer were not getting it. So Dawson Church was one of these people that studied identical twins. And the unique ability of identical twins is that they have the exact same DNA. And what they found categorically was that the twin that thought more positively, that ate better food because of their mindset, that prayed, meditated, had a spiritual discipline, that lived with a life purpose. They found all these markers that we now know help our genes express differently. And the concept of gene expression is what actually leads to the quality and quantity of your life. And this term for gene expression is epigenetics.
Yeah. And epigenetics is the thing that we're diving deeper and deeper into, because that's what's influencing your future. And here we talk about the ageless future and how can we reverse age. You and I were just talking about the new diagnostic called Sapir. And we're like, hey, this is how we can test the level of senescent cells in your body. And more importantly, look at the way that your T cells are behaving, because the immunosenescence is at the core of all aging in the body. And so epigenetics, if you look at it, Steve, what are some ways that people can assess their epigenetics effectively and actually see if they're doing more harm than good? Oh, great.
Is this okay that I did this? So
Please.
One of the things that, as you and I have been speaking about, how can we help people that are in the ageless health universe, and my experience, and I shared my experience with you, it was that, I turned 68 years young yesterday.
Yeah.
And the normal stress of the life that we all live as business owners, I own, 2 companies, and you own East West and Ageless Future, and there's stress. We deal with stress. We deal with environmental toxins. So we created an epigenetic evaluator to help people look at what are the 10 common markers of people that live longer, and why are their genes expressing differently? And here's what they do. So if anybody wants to take this along, please do. And just all you'll do is use the rating scale 1 to 5. 1 is I rarely or never do this thing, and I'll read the thing, right? The item. And then 5 is I almost always do it. 4 being is I often do it. 3 being is I sometimes do it. 2 being is I occasionally, and 1 is I rarely or never do it. And I'll go through the 10 areas. The first being nutrition. And there'll be 2 questions or 2 statements, if you will, and you'll rate yourself. And so what I would say to the listener is grab a pen and a pad, and let's really look at how you can help yourself express health at a higher level. Number 1, I consistently eat organic, nutrient-rich foods that energize and heal my body. And I would say, how would you rate that, my friend, for yourself?
I'm a 5.
Yeah, right. Number 2, I intentionally limit sugar, alcohol, and processed foods to ensure my highest vitality.
Yeah, 5. Fortunately.
Sleep quality. So we know nutrition has so much to do. We thought that nutrition was 1/3, right? Gym 2/3, nutrition 1/3. But now we know it's the reverse. How important what you put in, right? Sleep quality. I honor my body with 7 to 9 hours of deep restorative sleep most nights.
Yeah.
Your score?
5.
I follow a steady sleep rhythm that leaves me refreshed, clear-minded, and ready for the day.
5.
Now, I want to tell you, for me, that was a 3 until I stopped drinking alcohol. I was not an alcoholic, but I was somebody that drank pretty consistently. I would say 4 out of 7 days a week, 11 to 10 months a year for 25 years. And by the time we did the blood labs, where was my homocysteine in my brain?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you were almost at 12. Steve's was about 100% higher than where we wanted it.
Right. And so, and I want to be authentic with everybody. This is how I wound up creating this, because Regan was teaching me, well, this is what the data says. How do you want to think and how long do you want to live? It's like, oh, okay. And one of the main principles I want us all to learn here is a principle that we teach. It's the very first principle of our course, whether you're taking it through our learning platform or live or in AI or the live workshops. And the principle is hard, easy.
Yeah.
And hard, easy says this. It's the number one thing that we brought up Garrett before, and Garrett will always tell you what we talked about is every second I face a decision, if I take what appears to be the hard path, I make the rest of my life easy.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, I take the easy path, I make the rest of my life hard. And my American brothers and sisters, we have fallen prey to convenience. It's convenient to eat fast food. It's convenient to watch TV too late and not get enough sleep. But what it is costing you is going to be really, really hard. It's easy to do those things, but it'll make your life hard. So I practice hard, easy. So the minute Regan showed me that, homocysteine levels, you are way over. I'm done with alcohol. Done.
Yeah.
Okay. And now I'm sleeping better. Exercise and movement. I was not exercising and moving enough, right? Now that I've taken the peptides, I've lost 22 pounds. It's much easier to exercise and move, right? But number 6, I follow a weekly exercise regimen that includes muscle building, strength training, cardiovascular conditioning, and balance flexibility practices. For you, buddy, what is that? 5? 1?
Oh, yeah. 5.
Yeah, 5. And dear listener, what is it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I break up long periods of sitting by moving intentionally throughout the day, stretching, walking, or reactivating my body and mind.
Yeah. 5.
Right? Stress reduction. And a lot of you, again, to be really self-empathetic as you hear these things. It's not as important what your score is as your honesty and your truth to yourself out of self-love and self-respect. Because that's why I want to share with you how many of these things I was not doing. I would answer very low on many of these questions, which is how I wound up creating this.
Wow.
I recognize people, patterns, and situations that drain my energy and honor myself by minimizing their influence with compassion and respect.
Man, I think I'm a 4 on that one, Steve. I could certainly create better boundaries.
Really powerful realization. Thank you for sharing that. And the last one here, and then I'm going to jump ahead, but I wanted the listeners to get a sense of how do we get our genes to express differently? Because when you're with stressful people, the data tells us this. Cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine shoot from your brain and are in every cell in about 1/100th of a second. What they do is they begin to disconnect your left and right brain, and simultaneously you go out of heart coherence. So your heart patterns begin to get jumbled. And if we looked at the electroencephalogram and the electrocardiogram, it's like this.
Yeah.
So when we recognize the people, patterns, and situations that drain your energy and honor yourself by minimizing their influence with compassion and respect, you go back into heart coherence and you begin to emanate different chemical informational messengers, namely dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. When those things are flowing, they're called wellness hormones. Now, if we add exercise, movement, good sleep, sunlight, circadian rhythms, eating the right food, being around the right people, doing purposeful work that you have passion for, you can start to see why your genes would express. Your thoughts about this, Regan?
Yeah, well, I think this is the very first thing we focus on with our clients is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, because that gets dysregulated in everybody's life, and cortisol is the alpha hormone. And so if you don't function out of a state of love, then you're in fear, just like you said. And what you're going to do is influence every hormone in your body. And so the stress reduction is critical because it will impact your sleep, your decisions you make, if you're going to exercise or not. It's going to have a big impact on your ability to choose the right foods nutritionally. So It's such a major thing, and this, in my mind, is probably one of the most important in the epigenetic breakthrough.
Beautiful. And number 5 is loving supportive relationships. And what I'll do, just for the sake of time, is I'll go through and I'll show the people the 10 markers. I won't read each one, but this is also really, really important. I nurture relationships where I feel valued, supported, and authentically seen. It's such a big one. So let's go through the 6th is sunlight and circadian rhythm. This is really the activation of your pineal that ripples down through the pituitary, thymus, thyroid, all the way down to the bottom adrenals, right? So we know through the, all pancreas, affecting insulin production, then down through the, testes and ovaries and so on and so forth. So you can see how important these things are. Now, we didn't even know this till 10 years ago. We didn't even know it. And most people still don't know if we use the term epigenetics. The next is the detox pathways that you and I have talked about so much, and environmental cleanliness. The 8th is purpose, belief, and mindset, living each day with a clear sense of purpose. The 9th is spiritual practices. In my previous book, The Prosperity Paradigm, I cite Sir John Templeton, who did an incredibly complex and complicated study of how prayer, meditation, and forgiveness practices influenced every aspect of human relationship. And the last is the ancestral well, ancestral healing and emotional processing, because we now know that the DNA is a repository for not only talents and gifts, right? Like we see great athletes from one generation, and baseball players, the Alou brothers, there's like the grandfather, the father, the son, right? They're all, and same thing. But we also know that trauma can move through ancestral healing. So we give this test now to, hopefully everybody that comes through the East-West program, so they can get a sense of, how do I express better health, more quality life, more quantity of life, and longevity.
Man. Well, and Steve, what have you seen in your clients when they've taken this test? What have you seen the outcomes be?
Well, so we just created, it's fairly new. I don't have a lot of data on it, but what I can tell you is the last person that I took it, and I just gave it to one of my clients. I work with C-suite executives in the financial services industry. Typically people that are either a top salesman for a major life insurance company, or somebody that owns a hedge fund or a bank, or is in the C-suite, right? CFO, CIO, COO, CEO, and they deal with high pressure.
Yeah.
Every day. Big, like power friction conversations all day, every day. And, out of a scale of 1 to 100, my guy was a 53.
Wow.
So I bring him to you, and I told him at a 53, what's happening is, and he's 55 years old, super wealthy, super successful, but just not going to live long. Yeah. Just not gonna. And then he takes the blood test, and everything that the epigenetic markers said, will likely be manifesting. Yeah. Your blood test showed, and even more difficulty. And he's now, enrolled in your program. And we're talking, this is a week ago. Right.
Well, and that is, I think the awareness that it's going to generate is massive, because, we call this the Ageless Future checklist, is where we have very specific categories of health that we take our clients down. And one thing that you've done is you've gone a little deeper in helping people understand, where there may be issues with stress reduction. In my case, I was looking at it, I'm like, I could actually improve that quite a bit. Relationships, nobody heals alone. And believe it or not, like Harvard released a study, and they found loneliness was put you at greater risk of death of all causes of mortality than smoking cigarettes, 2 packs a day does. Just being lonely. And you think about the world we live in, there are a lot of lonely executives, lonely leaders. There's lonely people all around. And so you coming out to Utah for this event, it's going to be amazing. Because Steve's also a musician. How did you get into music, by the way?
Music, art has always been such an important piece for me. I always, from the earliest age, loved singing. And by the time I was 18 or 19, I was in a band, and we started playing out at, typically bars, restaurants, things like that. By the mid-20s, I was playing on cruise ships. And by age 29, I recognized that as a career, while I was a good musician and a very good singer guitar player, I was not great. My other friend, Fred Johnson, I mentioned Jeff Locker, who worked for Tony Robbins, how I got into business. But my friend Fred Johnson was on tour with Chick Corea. So the greatest jazz pianist, one of the greatest jazz pianists in the world. The original jazz pianist in Miles Davis band was Chick, or Bill Evans, then Chick. So,
Wow.
and that's how great Fred is. And when I started playing out with Fred and the quality of musicians that he plays with, I recognized these guys are at a different level than me.
Yeah.
I coached a guy who was an All-American at University of Mississippi. Great, great guy. And he got drafted by the Saints. And he said, I couldn't get open. Everybody's better than they're faster, they're bigger, they're stronger. That's what I experienced in the music business. Everybody sang a little better. They could read music a little faster, and it doesn't mean I'm not a good musician. I am, but I recognize the truth. It's not falsehood we fear. It's the truth.
Oh, wow.
And that pulled me into really my sole purpose, which teaching spiritual principles in the business world. And that truth did set me free. Jesus said the truth will set you free. It's not just a metaphor.
Yeah.
But it can be painful.
Because
like you said, I don't think I'm a 5 at that one. I think I'm a 4. And there's a little tinge of pain, like, okay, this is where I need to correct.
Yeah. Yeah, because the truth, in your life, I'm sure you had a big vision, a big dream, being a rock and roll star. And Steve is a great performer, so that's the thing that you guys will get, is you get a little bit of that art with a lot of the science, but you made a big shift and a transition, and Soul Purpose Institute and your book. The crazy thing that you've done is, if you didn't direct that energy, I'm grateful that you didn't just become a full-time musician, but kept up the art and the practice of it. But your book is so insightful, and maybe you could share with people how to find your book and what your intention was behind writing it.
I started out writing a series of meditations because I recognized, how do I put these two amazing disciplines that in one of the greatest healing practices in the world that no one really knows is that great, which is the 12-step program. We've had at this point probably close to 1 billion people that did not believe in God heal using the techniques of the 12-step program. The first is telling yourself the truth. I can't stop drinking. My life has become unmanageable. The second is asking a higher power, even if you don't believe in it. It's one of the greatest evidences of the existence of divine intelligence in the universe, is that only half of the people that stopped drinking were theists. The other was atheists or agnostic. So they didn't believe in God, but because God exists, step 2 was asking a higher power for help. So I began to look at the science, not just the Bible, the biblical, the stories, the spiritual anecdotes behind it, but what is the science behind it?
Yeah.
Which John Templeton did, Tony Robbins is doing, you're doing in your work, the data. And I began writing prayer and meditation into 2 different things because they're different. One, prayer is speaking to the universe using the law of sympathetic resonance to project an energy that is positive so that you attract back more positivity. That is prayer. Meditation is listening to God. Prayer is speaking to God. So I incorporated those 2 principles that are really big in the 12-step program around step 7. It's used prayer and meditation to get right with my higher power. And
Mm.
so I incorporated them and I began writing these simple daily meditations. I started sending them out 20 years ago as an email. I still do Monday morning meditations. But then I began cataloging them in a book. And I sent them out to all our students. And our students go, why can't we buy this? I want to buy this for my wife. I want to buy this for my son. I want to buy this for my husband. So I printed the first 40 and just gave them away. And then I began about 15 years ago writing the next 40. And I went through years of struggle, a personal divorce, challenges that my kids were going through, and finally completed them all and realized through that suffering what was really necessary and why forgiveness and compassion, which I wrote into these meditations. So there are 80 daily meditations. Some of them are one paragraph, some of them are a page long with an exercise. And these exercises help us see the limiting mindsets, the fear, the doubt, the worry, and the scarcity, the hatred, the anger, which are all endemic to the human condition. It just makes us human. And how to heal them, release them, forgive them, and raise your conscious awareness. And it's called Soul Purpose Meditations, a spiritual philosophy of love-driven leadership. And you can get it anywhere, whether it's Amazon or Goodreads or Barnes and Noble. But if you want to get it real easy, you can just go into Amazon, and for $20, you get what many people paid 20,000 a year for.
Yeah. And it's such a great book because you can open it up at any time. And it's almost like, for those of you who like read the Bible or the Tao Te Ching, you can just open it up to a verse and it's just exactly what you need to hear in that moment. And very powerful. So we'll provide a link in the show notes. So definitely encourage everybody to pick that up. And what's your hope that people who do purchase the book? What would be the dream of yours that they have as an outcome?
To build a life you love.
Mm.
You are a unique being, and you have and share with us this gift of life, and it's a gift. And we reach a certain level of consciousness, and life can embitter us, and we believe that life is empty and meaningless. But if we go one step further, we move from fear to love, one step higher from reason mode, where life indeed is empty and meaningless, where we are taught that we are literally meaning-making machines and there is no meaning to life. At one level of consciousness, that is a fact.
Yeah.
If you keep going from the vacuum of space, that life is empty, to life is a plenum, it's actually full. And what's it full with? Possibility.
Yeah.
That the meaning of life at that next level of consciousness is to make life meaningful. Right? So you go from the empty, life is empty and has no meaning, to life is the plenum. It's not a vacuum, it's a plenum, it's full. And the meaning becomes in the word to make your life mean something. And how do you do that? Great Joseph Campbell said, follow your bliss, that's half of it. Then we see people like Scott Galloway and Yuval Harari say, it's not just your bliss, it's your talent. My bliss was music.
Yeah.
And I'm good.
Yep.
But my talent is mindset and aligning with divine intelligence, which is pulling you. It's the impulse within you that's pulling you higher, higher, higher up the stairway of selves to build a life you love. And that's why I wrote this book and what I would hope each reader would get if they read it.
Wow, that is beautiful, Steve. I love that alignment with your talents and your bliss. And yes, you still get a little dose of your bliss, as you know.
I'll play some music, right? We did it the last one.
Yeah, but then your talent is, I mean, every client that I've seen who's worked with you, they can't say enough good about the work that you do. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now who struggle wondering, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Where can I find this meaning that Steve talks about? Any advice you'd give them?
Yeah. recognize that you have genius inside of you, and you also have the fear brain. And when you can't find your path, it just means the fear brain is blocking it. So if you're one of the easy things I did last week, I was on a podcast and the guy said, I'm struggling to find meaning. And I said, I want you to ask ChatGPT, whatever Gemini Perplexity, knowing me as you do, what are my blind spots, my limiting beliefs, my scarcity mindsets and programs that are limiting me from seeing myself truly, clearly, and powerfully? So I would ask each one of you that are listening to this, I know that you're probably hip to AI in some way, using it in some way.
Yeah.
What I would humbly submit is go in and ask, knowing me as you do, because it stores a lot of what you have there, right? It's a learning platform. Some don't, but most do. What are my blind spots? What are my fear programs? What are my scarcity belief systems that are holding me back from finding more meaning and seeing myself as a divine being having a human experience? That's what you are. You are a spiritual being having a human experience.
And has anything surprised you, like when you've worked with AI on questions like that?
Oh, it nails me. It nails me. It tells me you're so esoteric. You wait for things to be so perfect. You wait to have the data, the mindset, 40 years of experience, 27 holy books. Stop it. You've read them all. Present it to people. It doesn't have to be perfect. Help the people that need the message. Just get it. They'll do the rest. And it was completely accurate.
Man. So you're creating a whole platform for insurance agents where and advisors and even creating a little bit of a Steve clone, like I've done with Steve uses my Regan bot as well, my ChatGPT bot,
Amazing.
which I love. It's so cool how aligned we are too, the AI bot and the thinking. But maybe you could talk a little bit about this future that you're creating for some of the advisors out there.
Well, it's a course in enlightened entrepreneurship. Thank you for asking that. I'm really big in entrepreneurship because I think what's happening in the world today is our brains are getting broken by the internet. We don't realize, like I was drinking too much alcohol because I wanted the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
We're using Instagram, X, Twitter, Facebook for dopamine hits. And that is dangerous. And look, let's talk about it. Elon Musk, clearly a genius, clearly a brilliant human being. We witnessed his brain being broken publicly. He got so immersed in Twitter, he had to buy it and control it. Right? Because his brain was getting dopamine hits. It was like a serpent in his pocket every 5 minutes. He had to look. Right? So what chance do the rest of us have? Here's a genius.
Right.
This guy's a genius. So we want to be very careful with how we're using technology. And we want to make sure that we're not going to use AI to just replace people, because that's what the big advertising, right? Yeah. It's going to be used for evil. It's going to overtake us. It's going to replace people. That's the matrix theory. You and I are using it to rebuild people and to raise their conscious awareness. And that's the platform I'm using called SPI, Soul Purpose Institute. Yeah. And Taiwa is the AI Wisdom Accelerator, TAIWA. Okay. Right? It's accelerating our wisdom. And I want to not only get it out to entrepreneurs, but I want to get it out especially to young men who are falling behind women. You know, Scott Galloway and some of the people I know that you and I, share stages with and respect has talked about what's happening for young men and how school systems are designed more for the thinking of someone that has estrogen flowing through their system than testosterone, which makes us short attention span, move towards hyperactivity. It's just an unfair playing field. It's an unlevel playing field. So I'm getting this, putting all these teachings into AI for entrepreneurs, number one. Yeah. And number two, I want to get it out to disadvantaged people in Central America, South America, Europe, and so that we rebuild instead of replace people using spiritual principles in the guise of entrepreneurship to make the world a better place.
Man, well, what a gift! Because the thing about it is, with AI agents, you put parameters up, and there's boundaries that are set, and so there's a level of wisdom and reproducibility that you couldn't do it as well as an AI agent could. Meaning that the reach that you have is exponentially greater, and that's where I look at the biggest opportunity when we're looking at meaning in our life. AI is just there as a reminder, because we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And so it's a really good platform. And by the way, any technology can be used for good or evil. So those of you who are like, Steve and Regan are on the dark side, they're going AI. It's like, actually, no, we're going to make sure that AI is a really good partner and really kind and has some really deep knowledge that it can share with everybody.
Your peptide blueprint bot this morning was super helpful with me and what my beloved Emily is going through, right? We had that conversation right before we came on the podcast today. So, I didn't have access to you, but I have access to your knowledge.
Right.
And your bot contextualizes it for me if I put in a good prompt. If I put in a prompt that says why, right? It's not a very good prompt. If I put in a prompt that says, hey, I just discovered my blood labs that I have mold detox, how would that change the peptide program? And what do I do? What peptides would help me detox that mold so I can get at the root of what's preventing my mitochondria from firing properly, right? And that's exactly what it was. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, and then the nice thing that Steve's done, and you guys encourage every client of ours who's listening to this to do the same, but then you go through and you say, okay, well, here's some of the thinking that your virtual version of you, the digital version, came up with. Tell me why not this and why that. And then we had a really good dialogue. So it was really nice because it bridged the gap of knowledge. So Steve and I could actually, Steve could access my brain at a higher level versus me trying to bring him up through the entire protocol and process and where we're going with it. It was already there. So you were like at a level of thinking that made it really exciting for me to actually go into the nuances instead of the foundation.
What a great point you just made. That it was so true, because you're the master. You do this every day. I'm not even an apprentice, right? I didn't know the word peptide before 10 months ago. I mean, truly. And I heard collagen, whatever. But So you're the master. But in being able to go into the Peptide Blueprint AI program that you give me access to, which everybody that takes your course gets access to, the difference is I utilize the tool.
Right.
I get in the gym. The tool. And remember, Regan said something really important. A hammer is neither good nor bad. The context with which it's used defines its meaning. A gun is neither good nor bad. The context defines the meaning. A holy book is neither good or bad. The context with which it's used defines its meaning. The AI bot that you're using is really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Because you're using it for good. You're helping repair, reset, rejuvenate, and rebuild people's longevity. And I want to tell you, I'm living proof it works, and I really am appreciative to you for it, my brother.
Wow, it's awesome seeing you get younger every time I see you. Muscles are starting to bulge out when you're playing the guitar, and here you are. You turn 68, and you look like you just turned 50. I mean, it's an honor to be able to work with you, and this has been such a great conversation, and I hope you guys can feel the love, because Steve, the biggest difference I noticed with Steve versus most other humans on the planet is you instantly feel cared for by him. Like, no matter what's going on in your life, you're being the biggest crisis. Well, how are you, Regan? And I'm like, well, we're talking about you, Steve, but I'm doing good, but let's, and it's just, you can't help it. And so where's the best place for people to find you and connect with you?
So we have two coaching companies. One is Soul Purpose Institute, which will bring you to our site, Mission Driven Advisor. Mission Driven Advisor is typically for the C-suite executives in the financial services industry, but you can take all our metrics there. You can take the Soul Purpose metrics, so you can discover your soul purpose role. You can take the Epigenetic Evaluator, will be up there this week. And you can get a bunch of goodies. Get on our Monday morning meditation, and you can also get a taste of soul purpose meditations as well. So missiondrivenadvisor.com, soulpurposeinstitute.com. And just know that you bring something special to this world, and the world really needs it.
Well said. Well, Steve, really appreciate and love you. I appreciate the depth that you brought into my life, and actually the re-energizing of material that I hold very sacred. I don't teach it much, but Steve's actually helped peel back a layer in me, where you guys have already seen it at some of the events that we're doing, where I'm going a little more into the esoteric side on healing and the nature of things. So I appreciate that very much.
Been my pleasure. You make it a joy, my friend. And the fact that we're personal friends now is even more meaningful.
No doubt. Well, thanks everybody. And if you love this show, make sure you share it with your friends, family, and loved ones. And we'll provide the link to contact Steve in the show notes. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.